What's up, IT Nation? As we're getting ready for IT Nation Secure here with David and Tim. I guess we should do intros again. I know this was a two-part video, but you might only see this one. So this time, David, we'll start with you since we started with Tim last time.
Welcome, everybody. It's a pleasure to be here with all of you. My name is David Brown. I'm one half of the Twins from the Twins Talk Tech Leadership Podcast, and I'm the Director of Strategic Partnerships with App Meetup, where we do training and help you to elevate your MSP game. Honored to be here with all of you. My goal is to help you get on stage and to crush it, whether you're doing a panel or you're delivering a keynote. That's what we're here for.
Yeah, so Tim Coach, I am the current channel evangelist, or the chief evangelist, I should say, for Synomi. I'm a recovering MSP that has moved over into the vendor space. So I didn't know this was a real job. So when somebody's like, hey, listen, the phone doesn't have to ring on the help desk all day long. You can go travel the world and have great conversations and represent really great companies. That's what I did. And now I specialize in go-to-market strategies for up-and-coming startup companies, the latest one being Synomi. If you guys haven't heard, 37 billion in Series B yet, or 37 million in Series B yesterday. So super excited to be watching the progress of this company and bringing something forward to you guys.
Congrats.
Thank you.
So what we want to talk about
billion,
today,
I think my owner would fall over. Like we'd all be like retired.
you would not be on this video if
No,
it was
you would
37
not.
billion.
But I would still be here. Like this is such an addicting lifestyle. Like being part of this channel, being part of this community, the amount of servitude that comes in our actual industry is so great. I think even if I did, I would still do this at some level because I enjoy it so much.
You'd just be doing it on a beach. Yeah, I got you.
Yeah,
Somewhere in the
do it
Southeast
from the
Asia or
beach.
something.
So in this video, what we want to talk about is if you were given a presentation, and Secure is actually a good venue for this in that there's a lot of people who aren't necessarily professional speakers, right? You may be a security nerd, engineer person who is not used to being on stage all the time. How do you deliver value to the audience, right? We all can go up there and like read the slide or like, look like an academic lecture, but how do you do something that really provides value and do it with some confidence and keep the audience engaged? And you guys can use me as an example if you want. I tend to like go up and do my presentation deck and it's like A, B, C, D, right down the line. And that is not necessarily the most engaging format, which I learned the hard way that poor Tim had to suffer through way back when, those presentations. So what do you do? What are some tips for just conveying information in a way that's a little more engaging? And maybe we'll talk later about some tips you're new to speaking, like how do you get over some of those jitters and have some good stage presence?
Well, if you don't mind, I'll definitely start. Obviously, the simple thing is you could go get our book, Talk It Up, or join one of our programs on how to become a more effective speaker. I would say if you're looking at how to engage with your audience, keep in mind that less is more. I go to these conferences and you'll tend to see those who aren't very comfortable, they're not as versed in getting on stage, and they'll have an 80 pitch deck, a 80 slide deck, and you don't want to do that. Secondly, you don't want to have too much information on a deck where you overwhelm the deck and you stop becoming the focus of the presentation. You're the focus. It's called a visual aid for a reason. So less is more. And we could talk about the practicals on it in terms of colors, fonts, sizes, all that kind of stuff. But if I could say, starting off the conversation today, is less is more and focus on your audience. That's what I would do.
So I'm just going to ask you, how controversial do you want me to be? Because I can just like start off like just super like controversial, or I can kind of like graduate into it.
Let's talk about the stuff that speakers need to hear, right? Less is more is something that especially engineering people at a security conference needs to hear.
So
what do they need to hear,
first thing
Tim?
I will tell you is the presentation is not about you, it's about the audience.
Yep.
It's not about marketing, it's about the audience. There are some great people in marketing, and I need those people, right? Because like I've always said, like I'm not a detail-oriented person, so I hire detail-oriented people, right, to help me. I'm not great with like graphics, so I hire graphics people. I'm not great with some of the back-end data. Marketing does all of that. The issue is marketing doesn't know how to speak to the audience. in that kind of a setting. They have a big overall vision that you want to follow. They have branding. You need to be on branding. There's certainly messages that have to be brought out, right? Like it's certainly part of my time when I'm putting together a presentation to spend with marketing to say, okay, what are the key things you want me to hit? Do we have any big announcements? Then it's my job as the presenter to put together a presentation that is in the audience's hear language, meaning the way they hear, right? So if I, like in my MSP days, when I went to a doctor's office, I didn't call them doctors. I called them providers because that's the term they use, right? So when I go in and I'm using these big words out of Gartner, or I'm using these big statistics, right? Like there's some statistical presentations out there that I know people absolutely love. The problem with those presentations is there's such a macro level that the audience doesn't really understand what they're talking about. So you really have to take who your audience is, focus on what they hear, focus on their language, and then take the stuff that the company's giving you, that marketing's giving you, the speaking spots, and put that together in a presentation that makes sense to them, not to the people that are creating it, right? Because it's very easy, like we talk about AI all the time. Well, most of us can spell AI, but there's so many differentiations to AI that when I'm up in front of an audience and I'm saying, yeah, we use an AI large language model to da-da-da-da-da, that's noise to them.
Yeah.
Right. All they hear is AI. They hear Charlie Brown's Teacher because we've overdone it so much. What they need to know is, hey, I use AI specifically to evaluate the data to create a result that's relevant to you. So I'm using it as a data analytic tool. They understand that, right? If I'm saying I'm using generative AI to blah, 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 I'm Charlie Brown's Teacher. So once again, present in the language they hear in, not the language that you want them to hear.
Man, those are such good points. I remember the first deck I ever made for the first presentation I gave. If I went to try and do that now, that deck would take a full day to get through. The amount of information and stuff I put on there, like to do it correctly, it literally would be like a 4 to 5 hour presentation. Fantastic point.
Like Matt, you hit such a good point early on in this conversation, and I'm lucky enough that I have seen you progress as a speaker, right? And people are like, "Oh my God, that's like you remember the old days." Like, trust me, I remember my old days too. I've seen you progress as a speaker and watch you evolve as a speaker and how you've changed to be more effective to your audience, and it's great. But it's also there's an ability in there that you hit on early on that I wanted to talk about. You are a very technical person. Right? Your level of understanding of tech is beyond probably most audiences, right? So for you, it's like, how do you go in and have a technical conversation with a business audience, right? And that's like, for me, when I'm presenting, like I present from a business perspective, because even though I'm an engineer by education and trade, and I understand the tech, most of the time I'm having business conversations. So if I know I'm getting into a presentation that I'm going to have a technical part, I bring in a technical person because they speak the language of the audience better than I do at this point in my career. So I think understanding a technical presentation versus a business conversation, once again, who's your audience? How do you present to the audience is very key, because you and I both know you've seen a great technical presenter glaze over a business crowd in about 3 seconds, right? And you've seen a business presenter lose a technical crowd in just the same amount of time. Once again, all about the audience.
Love that. I was going to say the same thing, Tim. It's all about the audience. Great thing that I think I bring is I'm able to work with different presenters, whether they've been on stage for years or it's the first time getting on stage. And one thing I would say is lean on your strengths. Focus on your audience, but also lean on your strengths. My twin, being a former MSP and VAR, recovering MSP, just like yourself, Tim, there's a sense of ease for him to be able to go on stage and talk technical. And I say, Dan, you can go talk geek with anybody you want, but if your audience isn't that, you're going to waste your time and theirs as well. The thing to keep in mind is this: your audience wants you to succeed because they want to be there and not waste their time. So don't waste their time by not focusing and tailoring your message to what they want to receive. Tim, kudos to you on that again. I'm just telling you, man, we're like two peas in a pod.
And I think as there's a difference between talking business and talking to business, or talking tech and talking to tech, right? Like I can talk business, but primarily my background is tech and engineering. And if I try to take the position of a deep, long time experienced business owner, the lack of credibility is going to show through, right? So there's the ability for me to talk technical to a bit without pretending to be a lifetime business person. It's the same thing on the other side, right? If you're a business owner primarily, or an exec, you might be able to say something that talks to, but if you get up there and like pretend you're a hardcore security nerd, it's gonna like come off awful.
Yep. They'll know.
Yeah, that's the reason why like although I'm in security technically, I talk more from the business perspective because there's better people aligned to do that, right? And that's where I think we see, like for me, I have a really great marketing team that I get along with, right? And that's critical because there's a lot of times when speakers and marketing don't get along, right? And when you see that they're getting along, what you get is a great presentation. Because I don't know, and we could all three of us sit here and talk about this. How many great speakers have you seen lose that great speaking reputation because they were handed a deck and said, this is the presentation? There's no
Oh, man.
personality. There's no feeling in it. They're just up there being repetitive to what's been handed. So it really takes a correlation between your marketing department understanding what the company's trying to get out to the world and the speaker's presentation and comfort with the topic. So like Matt, like you and I would be great in a presentation together on a business tech, right? Because we have two different strengths. We can speak to the other, but why would I do that when I can engage in somebody else that does a better job at it than I do?
Well, I think the thing I'll add to that, Tim, is you met the point about the alignment between yourself and as a speaker and your marketing or whoever's putting together your slide deck or creating that for you. That it's got to be not only branded in a way that reflects the company, but it's got to also reflect the speaker and the personality. How you show up is important because they see you at every conference, they see you at these events, and they've got to be able to see that same person that goes on stage. It can't be an act. It can't just be I'm putting on a show. And so I definitely agree there has to be the alignment, and that might be something you have to do more on the back end internally with your teams, but it's something you got to work on to make sure that's important. When I speak versus when my twin speaks, our decks are designed a little different. Yes, you might have the same logos or the same branding on that side of it, but what's conveyed is done different because Dan's does feel more like it's technically aligned. It does feel like there's might be more of the graphics or percentages that he might want to use to highlight his points, whereas mine's more might be a word or phrase or some image that I might want to expound upon in my presentation. So I agree, the alignment has to be there.
So let me ask an open-ended question. Let's say you are up there as a representative of a vendor. Obviously, you're there to pitch and get some awareness for your product. But how do you do that in a way that delivers value at the same time, right? The way I sometimes describe it is nobody wants to see like a 45-minute long product demo. How do you make sure that your audience gets something out of it while still conveying the value you're up there to talk about?
My thought is you got to remember, like I said earlier, less is more. And you want to be so intriguing as a presenter that you convey just the right amount of information for that engagement to occur later. Where they say, "Hey, I want to follow up with you," or "Dave, what do you mean by that?" Or "Hey, I want to reach out to you to have a deeper dialogue about this." You can't give them everything. All right. The whole great thing about being here in Texas and saying who's got the best barbecue is you're not going to get everything in the recipe. All right.
Kansas City.
But you're going to get enough, the best brisket. I'll put it that way. We can fight about the other stuff, but you're going to know there's certain elements that are there for all of it. Do you use a binder? Do you not use a binder? Is it salt, pepper? Is there any other aspects to the recipe? But if you give them enough and that taste resonates in their mind, they're going to want to know more about it, whether they keep coming back to eat from your restaurant or they come back to say, Dave, I want a partnership to get deeper into that recipe. That's what you got to keep in mind when you're speaking. You want to give them enough. And the thing I would say about what you mentioned earlier, Matt, I do classes on elevator pitches, VC pitches. You've got to design them specific for the listener. You can't have the same one and use it over and over again and think it's going to stick to the wall, right? When like you think the spaghetti's ready. You've got to be able to give them exactly what they need for them to want to have a further conversation or another opportunity to engage with you. It's got to stick. Now, I'll also put this caveat out in this way. Not everybody in that room, in that presentation, is going to walk out with the exact same message. They may remember only a quarter of what you said, but they're going to know how you made them feel. They're going to know if you're speaking to them. And if you are, that's the opportunity for that conversation. So, yes, your message is not going to be perfect for everybody, but it only needs to be perfect for the listeners you need.
Yeah, and I'll double down on that. Once again, audience. What are they looking for? How are they hearing? Like as someone who's in charge of the budget, the shows, the presentations, everything I put together, there's often times where I will go in to an event with multiple speaking spots. Like if you're a speaker on stage, you got to be at an ego as it starts, right? Yeah. But even I know that I get tired of listening to me. So if you have multiple speaking spots, unless the subject matter is so different, utilize other speakers. So if I'm going in and I've got a main stage, and let's say that main stage is 30 minutes, that's me all day long. That is my jam. That is my spotlight. That is where I perform, right? But if I have a breakout, that's all that breakout is doing is covering more in depth what I spoke about on stage, then I'm going to do a bit of a demo. I'm going to do a bit of here's the key aspects that you really want to look at. I'm going to do a little bit of go to market versus the big overall stage penance, right? Like I want to do a different kind of segment, but once again, it's adding continual value to people coming and seeing you. I'm very well known. Every 3 to 6 months, I will change my presentation because there's nothing I hate more than going and setting to a listener saying the exact same thing in December that they said in January.
Yep.
And you just talked about one of the big things, Tim. Like I know even if you're at a session you paid for, if I go to a Tim Coach session, I'm not just going to see like a live version of what's in the KB, right? I'm going to hear the go-to-market info. I'm going to hear the use cases that might not be in the marketing copy, right? All the stuff that I actually need to know as an engineer in this space or someone making a selection or someone who has that problem, that's what I'm going to get out of that. And I think it's so important that if you're an attendee, or if you're doing a presentation, think about what your attendee is going to get out of it. And if your presentation is just, hey, this is everything in our documentation, then what are you even doing up there?
Right. I mean, and that's but don't get me wrong. Like you got to be. There's got to be a little bit of entertainment, right? There's got to be a little bit of flash. Like you've got to engage with people. Like that's like I it just naturally happens. Whether I'm standing on stage and sometimes I'll get down to the floor, right? Depending on the room and how I'm reading the room, right? Inevitably, there'll be people in various parts of the room that for whatever reason, I end up locking eyes with, right? And although I'm speaking to the entire room, I tend to come back to those people and have a one-on-one conversation with them for a brief moment as I'm scanning through the entire room, delivering the presentation. So there has to be some energy, right? You can't be flat. You have to have some entertainment. You got to have some jokes. And if your joke falls flat, make a joke about your flat joke, right? Like it's a little bit of everything, but it does have to be entertaining. It does have to be informative, and it has to be there. It has to be a true value of both the person that's sitting in the room and the presenter.
So we'll start to wrap this up. I'll ask a question similar to our other video on this topic. At this show in particular, we have a number of speakers who are like new. We intentionally select some first-time speakers. If you could give somebody who's new to the stage one tip, one piece of encouragement, something to keep in mind when they get up there, what would it be?
I'll give my thought here, and I'll give you a kind of a summary. If I can say, remember this one thing, if you want to be a successful speaker going on stage, record yourself or have somebody around you in your office, a colleague, record you delivering that presentation. Then what I want you to do is I want you to take that recording and I want you to literally turn off the video and just listen. Listen to yourself. Ask yourself, am I convinced? Is my pace? Is my tonality? Is it what it needs to be? Okay. And then I want you to do the opposite. Turn off the sound and watch it. Watch it for body language because that is the most important factor for conveying confidence and a message that you want to be received in the right manner. Do I pace too much? Am I fidgety? Am I engaging with my eyes? If you do those things, then I'll tell you, practice, practice, practice. You're going to crush any opportunity that you have. If you want more specific insight into how to perfect that, I'm happy to give that, Matt. But I'll tell you, that's the easiest thing I would say. Put that in motion. You're going to crush the stage.
Yeah, and I would say for me, it's really two things. Like, I'm lucky enough that enough people know me on a personal level that I can have a really great conversation with them after the presentation, even if it's a couple hours after the presentation, and they will give me good, honest feedback. So have those people in the audience that can give you that good, honest feedback about how you're doing. As far as getting on stage, look, you're going to be nervous. It's natural. You will notice the wobbles in your voice. The audience won't. Know your material. If you know your material, if you are the expert in the room at the material you're delivering, it doesn't have to be the most technical, but if you are the expert in the room, then you will be fine because you know what you're talking about. I will tell you, I still do it to today. I guarantee you, all the speakers, if we sit here and name drop the speakers, they all do it. You will walk off stage, and the second you walk off stage, you'll be like, crap, I forgot to mention X, Y, or Z. I will tell you right now, the audience didn't even notice.
True.
Know your material.
Yeah.
Have someone in the room that can give you good, honest feedback and be open to that feedback, right? They're not trying to hurt your ego. They're trying to make you better at what you're doing.
Awesome. Well, thanks, guys. See, we even demonstrated one of the points. We didn't try and fit too much into this call. Tim, David, thank you very much for coming on. Appreciate the tips and advice for anyone new to speaking and how to provide value speaking, even as a vendor. Anything else you want to add? Other than that, I think we can wrap up. So thank you.
Looking forward to seeing everybody down in June. So let's go and have some great presentations, great engagement, and let's continue to strengthen the partner community. And I look forward to getting Tim on our shows and getting some time maybe to interface with him down there as well.
Yeah, for me, it's like, hey, I'm looking forward to seeing everybody. In the end, have fun.
Yes.
If you're having
Yeah.
fun, I guarantee you the people around you are having fun and they're engaged in you. If you hate doing it, why are you doing it?
Awesome. All right. Well, thanks, guys.